Mary Eleanor Wheeler was born in 1866 in London. She was the daughter of a man named Thomas Wheeler. A man by the same name was executed on November 29th, 1880, for the murder of an Edward Anstey. At an early age, Mary, who lived with her mother and older sister, began to develop serious problems with depression, and later on, she was known to be a heavy drinker. Even though battling her personal demons, Mary tried as best she could to carry on, and she became a midwife and abortionist in London's East End slums. Mary Wheeler changed her name to Mary Percy after she met and moved in with a man named John Charles Percy. The two were never married, and the arrangement did not last for long. John Percy left the relationship due to Mary's many infidelities with men that she would meet at various pubs in the Whitechapel area. Following the breakup with Mr. Percy, Mary moved in with a man named Frank Hogg and his girlfriend Phoebe Stiles. Mary and Phoebe seemed to have been the best of friends. Not long after Mary moved in with Frank and Phoebe, they learned that Phoebe was pregnant, and at Mary's insistence, they were married. Mary not only continued to live in the house, but being a midwife, delivered the Hogg's child, a daughter, also named Phoebe. At some point, Mary did move out, and she and Phoebe appeared to remain good friends. On October 24th, 1890, at the invitation of Mary, Phoebe and her daughter arrived at Mary's home. Nothing appeared to be unusual until about 4 p.m., when neighbors reported hearing terrifying screams coming from Mary's house. The body of Phoebe Hogg was found later that evening in a trash dump in Hampstead. Her skull had been crushed, and she was nearly decapitated. A blood-soaked baby buggy was also found about 1 mile away, and the body of 18-month-old Phoebe was later discovered in Finchley. Police searched Mary's home and found blood-splattered walls, ceilings, and blood-soaked floors. Mary Percy was charged with a double murder, convicted, and sentenced to death. She was hanged on December 23, 1890. Since her death, the ghost of Mary Percy has been reported many times in Whitechapel. She is said to roam the same streets that she did in life, often pushing a bloody black baby buggy, which, on occasion, she pushes into oncoming traffic before disappearing. She has also been seen walking past her favorite pubs wearing a bloody dress, just as she had been seen many times before during her life, after performing her role as a midwife and abortionist. Normally, that would be the end of Mary's story. But, if true, the rest of the story of Mary Percy, sometimes called the Mad Midwife, is also very disturbing. No doubt, the double murder shocked and fascinated the public, but there was a much bigger story in London at the time. An extremely violent serial killer with the self-given name of Jack the Ripper was killing prostitutes and terrifying the Whitechapel area. The last victim of Jack the Ripper was Whitechapel prostitute Mary Kelly. Kelly's grotesquely butchered corpse was discovered in her room at 13 Miller's Court on Friday, November 9th, 1888. Police estimated that she had been murdered somewhere between 3:30 and 4 a.m., and that was a problem. Inspectors on the case interviewed a woman named Caroline Maxwell, who claimed that she had seen Mary Kelly on 2 occasions after the supposed time of death. Maxwell first saw Kelly at about 8 a.m. at Miller's Court and said that Kelly appeared to be ill. About an hour later, Maxwell saw Kelly again, this time in front of the Britannia public house. Maxwell's observations were based on the clothing that the woman she identified as Mary Kelly was wearing, specifically a shawl that Kelly always wore. While investigating the Kelly crime scene, police had noted that there was a woman's clothing burning in the fireplace. While pondering what, if anything, the burned clothes meant, Inspector Frederick Aberline came up with a disturbing question. Was Jack the Ripper, or at least Mary Kelly's murderer, a woman? If Mary Kelly's murderer was indeed a woman, she could have changed into some of Kelly's clothing and disposed of her own bloody clothing in the fireplace. Inspector Abilene never had a woman as a suspect in any of the Ripper killings, but maybe he should have. Mary Kelly was several months pregnant at the time of her murder. Being a prostitute and living in terrible poverty, Kelly most likely would have wanted to abort the baby, and if that was the case, Mary Percy, midwife and abortionist, was the one to call in Whitechapel. Percy demonstrated the homicidal rage that would be required to slaughter a human being in the manner that Mary Kelly was in the 2 murders that she was executed for. There's no way to know for sure if Mary Percy was actually Mary Kelly's killer. It is interesting to note, however, that the clothing Mary Kelly wore the day she died was found neatly folded beside her bed, except for the shawl that Caroline Maxwell reported seeing a woman wearing after Kelly's death. In 2006, DNA from the Ripper case was examined. The results were inconclusive, but the possibility that Jack the Ripper was a woman could not be ruled out. Between 1888 and 2012, London police have investigated 30 cases where the murder victim was butchered in the same manner as Mary Kelly. 29 of those cases have been solved, and in all 29 cases, the killer was a woman.